In our first story, Behind Mansion Walls.
Children's hands and footprints splashed all through their mother's blood.
A mother of 6 caught in a struggle for power.
One of them said, "Bad man hurt mommy."
And later, the marital bed becomes a deathbed.
He became drunk with power.
You think, hang on, that doesn't ring true.
I'm Christopher Mason. Behind mansion walls, the dirty work is rarely done by the master of the house. If it's messy or unpleasant, it's a job for the staff. No surprise, then, that murder is also a task for the hired help.
The Country Club Golf Course, a sanctuary for the seriously wealthy, whose main worry in life is the length of their next putt.
He belonged to the best country club, and he bought a multi-million-dollar house. He loved flashing his money.
Self-made millionaire Alan Blackthorne shouldn't have a care in the world. But there's a cloud over Alan's head.
Many a business deal is concocted over a quiet round of golf. 18 holes provide ample time to chat, plan, and plot. Problems can be discussed and solutions arranged. Alan Blackthorne has something he wants someone to fix permanently.
Alan Blackthorne's very shady character, very dark personality, very much a schemer, conniver, a con.
To outside eyes, he's happily married with 2 young children and living in a stunning mansion in San Antonio, Texas. He has all the money he needs.
Extremely wealthy. I mean, he's a millionaire. He sold the rights to this medical device and lived off the interest. The interest was something like $750,000 a year.
More than enough to fund his healthy passion for golf.
Tough shot.
But Alan Blackthorne has another obsession. Losing custody of his 2 daughters to his ex-wife Sheila after a bitter divorce.
For Alan Blackthorne, it was very much about power, very much about control. And so the idea that she could find a way to take his children and get away and have a fresh start, despite the fact that he had all this money and power, that he was somehow helpless, he refused to accept that.
Okay, you ready, kids? You ready for the shot?
Since her divorce from Alan nearly 10 years earlier, Sheila Bellish has remarried and had quadruplets.
Smiles, come on.
With her 2 daughters from her first marriage to Alan, Stevie and Daryl, she now lives in Sarasota, Florida.
Sheila grew up in a nice family. She was working as a legal secretary when she met Alan. The marriage to Alan was a nightmare.
Alan, honey, the Johnsons want to know if we want to go to dinner with them.
Jesus, no!
It only lasted a few years, but the divorce lasted longer than the marriage.
The custody battles were nasty.
I hate you!
He accused her of everything under the sun.
Sheila triumphs, winning custody of her daughters. But she knows Alan Blackthorne all too well. This man does not like to lose.
Sheila is so frightened of her ex-husband, she leaves town quickly and quietly.
They fled to Florida. They left no forwarding address. They didn't want Alan to find them.
She was trying to build a good life for her children. A happy life, a peaceful life.
It's November 7th, 1997, in Sheila Bellish's new home in Florida.
I'm painting big goggles.
Her 13-year-old stepdaughter, Stevie, is just home from school.
Mom, I'm home.
She walks in the house, calls for her mother, doesn't see anything.
Mom?
sees the quadruplets running around.
Oh my God, sweetie, what happened?
You had these little children's hands and footprints splashed all through their mother's blood.
One of them said, "Bad man hurt mommy."
Sheila Bellish is lying dead on the kitchen floor.
There was a massive amount of blood all over the floor. Sheila Bellish had been shot, and then she had her throat cut. Very gruesome scene.
Oh my God. Kids must have been here for hours.
A gruesome scene that has detectives baffled.
What would be the motive? What is behind this? Was it a robbery gone bad? Was it a sexual assault that turned to homicide?
Obviously, she was trying to make a phone call.
We just did not know initially.
Defensive wounds. Laceration of the throat.
When wives are murdered, the investigation always starts close to home.
Obviously, anytime a wife gets murdered, the first suspect is the husband.
Police call Sheila's new husband at work.
They told him about it, and he was pretty distraught. He was very hysterical. He asked the officers to pray with him.
Her husband is devastated, and he has a strong alibi.
He told him where he ate lunch. He had a receipt from the place where he ate lunch. The officers went down and verified, so they knew he was 90 miles away at the time of the crime.
But Sheila's 13-year-old daughter, Stevie, is pointing the finger firmly in another direction.
Do you have any idea who might have done it?
Who did it?
The first officers on the scene asked Stevie, they said, "Do you have any idea who would have done this?" And Stevie told them, yes.
Who?
My father, Alan Blackthorne!
Father. Come on, sweetheart, let's get you out of here.
Alan Blackthorne is a very likely suspect. He's battled his former wife through multiple child custody cases, each one more bitter than the last. But on the day she died, eyewitnesses place him right where you would expect him to be, on the golf course.
Leads turn into dead ends. But one thing is becoming clear. This murder is the work of a rank amateur.
Obviously, the shooting occurred. We got a casing.
They found the shell casing, they found the bullet. They find a fingerprint on the dryer in the laundry room.
Piecing together the clues, detectives come up with a theory. The killer hides in the laundry room before the attack. And when Sheila walks in to collect a load of clothes,
He had a .45 caliber pistol, and he put a towel around it to muffle the sound. And he shot her right in the head.
Oh my God!
The bullet hit her in the jaw, shattered her jaw, and exited the back of the neck.
but Sheila is still alive and thinking, the babies. I must save my babies.
Sheila retreated from the laundry room to the next room, which was the kitchen. He followed her. He grabbed a kitchen knife, and she was fighting because she had a bunch of defensive wounds on her hands. And then used that and cut her throat a couple of times right through there.
The attacker leaves her for dead. But Sheila has some life left.
I think she fought for her children. The first thoughts that went through her mind were, I've got to take care of my babies.
She crawled a distance across the floor, was reaching up, and had actually gotten the phone off of the cradle on the wall to dial 911. But at that point is whenever she lost her life. She died at that point and never completed that 911 call.
Soon after, a neighborhood gardener comes forward with information.
He had seen a white sports car pull up and a fella get out and start walking up the sidewalk wearing combat clothing, military fatigues, boots, and certainly looked out of place in that community.
The neighbor made a note of the license plate.
So we ran the tag.
In Florida, and there was nothing. And they ran it in Texas.
And bingo, they have a match.
A young man by the name of Joey Del Toro was the driver of that car. And it was actually registered to his grandmother, but it was in her name only. It was Joey's car. She said Joey couldn't possibly have been in Florida on Friday because he was doing weekend jail time in Austin, Texas for a minor charge that he'd been arrested for.
One phone call to the jail gives police a red-hot suspect.
We discovered that Joey Del Toro called in and said he wasn't going to be able to come and serve his weekend sentence because of a funeral he had to attend of a family member.
A man who should have been in jail, but wasn't. His car is seen in another state, right near the scene of a gruesome murder. Joey Del Toro has a lot of explaining to do.
In Sarasota, Florida, people knew Sheila Bellish as the quad mom, a busy mother trying to manage quadruplet toddlers. In November 1997, she becomes famous as the victim of a shocking murder. A strange car in Sheila's neighborhood leads detectives all the way to Texas, to a small-time hood named Joey Del Toro.
They found his car within a day, parked in a apartment complex in Austin in front of one of his girlfriends. They found out Del Toro had plenty of girlfriends, I mean, a dozen or so.
Aged 21, Joey Del Toro is a handsome ex-football star. He has the charm and the looks to be a ladies' man of some repute. If only he paid as much attention to his skills as a criminal. Because right now, the people with the biggest crush on Joey are the police.
As a result of the search of the car, we had a map to Sarasota. We had handwritten notes from a store clerk that gave him directions. We had motel keys, a towel to the motel where he stayed at in Sarasota. The .45 caliber handgun was recovered. Just more than we ever could have hoped for. There was no attempt to hide, discard, get rid of anything.
He was not the brightest of criminals.
Detectives even match a print found at the murder scene with Del Toro's. They have their man. But Joey's prowess with the ladies is finally paying off. A girlfriend tips him off, and he runs to Mexico, only to make his final mistake, a phone call.
We were able to determine that he had contacted his cousin, Sammy Gonzalez, who lived in San Antonio.
And cousin Sammy has a big mouth.
The initial investigation and questioning of Sammy Gonzalez in San Antonio revealed that he knew what Joey Del Toro had done, that he knew Joey Del Toro had gone to Sarasota, Florida to kill Sheila Bellish.
Why does a 21-year-old man drive 1,200 miles across 4 states to kill a woman he doesn't know? Why does he have her address on a piece of paper in his car? Joey's cousin Sammy has the answer to that.
I got a job. Okay.
He said that he had become involved in this plot to murder Sheila through the insistence of Daniel Rocha, who was a San Antonio golf hustler and bookie.
There's no risk at all. Go in there, do the job, get out. That's it.
Then he brings out the fact that all this is a result of a fella who's a golfing buddy of Danny Rocha wants his ex-wife killed.
Danny Rocha's golfing buddy is a man who knows Sheila Bellish very well, Alan Blackthorne.
They played golf at the same country club. Danny Rocha was an incredible golfer, and Alan Blackthorne liked to gamble. So they played golf on a regular basis together.
How could I miss the putt? Let's get out of here.
Alan and Danny would regularly bet thousands of dollars around. They become close on the fairways. And then Blackthorne decides to take the biggest gamble of his life, to get even with his former wife.
Initially, it starts off that, I want to teach her a lesson. That's the conversation between Blackthorne and Danny Rocha, according to Danny Rocha. I want to teach her a lesson. I want to scare her.
What do you mean? You know what I mean?
And then as the conversations continue, it becomes, it'd be nice if she were gone.
I'll take care of it.
I don't think it was ever about actually wanting to have his children. It was just about winning. And so I think he decided he would win a different way.
Detectives have no doubt about who had Sheila Bellish killed. But without cooperation from his golf buddy, Danny Rocha, their chances of proving it are slim.
Blackthorne maintained from the beginning that he never ordered anything, that Danny Rocha took it upon himself to do this, hoping to put himself in good graces so that Blackthorne would give him money.
We knew he was the one that hired Rocha. The only way to get to Blackthorne was through Rocha, though, because we needed Rocha to say, Blackthorne hired us to do this.
But Danny Rocha is a gambler who knows his testimony is his only card, a get-out-of-jail card.
He wanted no prison time in exchange for his information directly against Alan Blackthorne.
While Rocha holds out for a deal, the two guys further down the food chain take the fall. Joey Del Toro's hapless foray into life as a hitman is cut short. Extradited from Mexico, he faces justice.
Case against Del Toro was airtight. He ended up pleading guilty and received a life sentence. He gave a full statement after his plea and told us exactly what had happened. Sammy Gonzalez made a deal with us, so he entered a plea. He was sentenced to 19 years.
2 men have been locked up for their role in the horrifying murder of a mother of 6. And the mastermind of this unspeakable crime of revenge, he's happily perfecting his swing at the country club.
Alan Blackthorne continues with his life. He remarried, he has 2 young boys, he has an incredible house, he's continuing to play golf. So Blackthorne thinks he's gotten away with it at this point.
But Alan's personality has a fatal flaw.
Alan was largely a con man, and con men think they're smarter than everyone else.
Big mistake. While Alan golfs, prosecutors tirelessly study federal law until they find an angle.
It's a violation of federal law to cause anyone to travel in interstate commerce for the purpose of intimidating, harassing a former spouse.
And when Danny Rocha decides to cooperate, Alan Blackthorne has the worst finish to any golf game he's ever had.
He had finished a round of golf and was arrested in the parking lot of the country club. He had manipulated Danny Rocha to do his dirty work, and he didn't think anyone was going to believe that Danny Rocha, a bookie and a hustler, against Alan Blackthorne, this successful, independently wealthy millionaire. hired attorneys to protect him, and he thought that his money, his wealth, and his intelligence would beat anybody. Alan never thought that he would be convicted.
This time, Alan Blackthorne's luck has run out.
He was sentenced to life imprisonment on both counts. He's not eligible for parole.
He was just a full-on sociopath, all about power and control. And he liked to believe that he could call all the shots. And I never once saw a moment of remorse on his face.
Alan Blackthorne was so wealthy, he retired to the golf course in his 40s. But he couldn't retire from his hateful obsession with his ex-wife. A hatred that surely still burns in him today as he sits in prison, never to stroll the fairway again.
Still to come behind mansion walls.
He became drunk with power.
Sex and death by the seashore.
Well, it was a gruesome scene. There's no other way to describe it.
When a bizarre murder unlocks a world of secrets.
What sort of a man can do this?
Sydney, Australia. Beautiful yachts sail past exquisite homes. When the skies are blue and your bank account is bursting, it's simply idyllic.
Houses facing onto Sydney Harbour are some of the most expensive in the world. Here, movie stars vie with the titans of big business for a slice of paradise. A room with a view should be a ticket to a contented life, not a window into horror.
When the sun goes down on Sunday, January 26, 1986, something is lurking in the darkness.
It was a uniformed constable. That particular night, that call came over the air that there'd been a shooting.
The first policeman on the scene at an exclusive waterfront home is Constable Dave Christie. He finds the body of a woman lying on a bed.
Well, it was a gruesome scene. There's no other way to describe it. Just blood. Incredible amount of blood.
Kneeling beside the bed, a strange man.
Excuse me, mate.
We took that all in straight up. You're wondering what has gone on here.
Step back a bit, please.
And who's this man kneeling beside the bed?
Right, are you okay?
Yeah, I'm fine.
We basically moved him away.
What happened?
Because the first instinct was to, is she alive?
Let the ambulance also have a look. Come on.
But it's too late. Below the woman's ear, 2 red holes, entry points for the bullets that killed her.
Where were you when this happened?
Well, I was asleep.
The man beside the bed appears dazed and confused. He says that this is his wife, Megan.
I'm her husband.
I actually sat him down and started taking notes. And what do you do for a living? He said, I own a hotel in Manly. And I said, oh, which one? He said, the Manly Pacific. And I thought, you got a fairly important individual here because the Manly Pacific was quite iconic.
I've come around here and I've seen my wife.
And for him to own a hotel of that size, I thought, well, we're talking serious dollars.
This new widower is millionaire hotelier Andrew KALAJZICH, developer of the biggest seaside hotel in Sydney, the Manly Pacific International.
Well, Andrew KALAJZICH was the son of some fairly poor migrants who came to Australia from Yugoslavia. They had a really fantastic work ethic, so they made money through hard work.
The KALAJZICH family built a small fortune with their popular seafood restaurants.
As a young man, Andrew KALAJZICH was put to work in his parents' restaurant. He'd be stuck in the kitchen, peeling potatoes for hours on end. But his eyes were always on a much brighter future.
He came up with this extraordinary idea to have, you know, this 5-star hotel.
The opening of the hotel, yes, it was a big event for Sydney, the Sydney social scene.
Cars, limousines would be pulling up, celebrities would be piling out. It was turning over millions, really, right from the beginning of when he opened the doors.
Andrew KALAJZICH basically was somebody that worked his way up the Sydney society ladder.
Well, he was a self-made millionaire.
Now, this high-profile millionaire is far from the glamour of his hotel.
Basically, what we had is the wife of a well-known Sydney millionaire who, for some strange reason, was shot dead in the bed.
Hard-nosed crime reporter Steve Barrett could smell a big story.
The next day, as a working television reporter, I was put on the case, talking to numerous detectives that I knew there.
The direction in which the gunman fled is as equally as puzzling as the killing itself.
The first pieces of information that we had and the police had was, of course, Andrew's story. And that is that someone had broken into the home, climbing above an upstairs balcony, in through sliding doors. A gunman had stood back in a room, gone bang, bang, 2 bullets into the head of his wife, Megan, and bang, bang, 2 bullets which ended up in Andrew's pillow. Andrew had the good sense to wake up, hear bang, bang, the murder of his wife, and then quickly roll off the bed and escape the assassin.
It looks like an assassination attempt.
Police say that Mr. KALAJZICH is extremely lucky to be alive.
Rumors swirl about rivalries in Sydney's Croatian community. 4 local businessmen jealous of Andrew's success. The 2 bullets that narrowly miss Andrew make it seem he was a target. But no one can fathom just who would want his wife, Megan, dead.
She was just a loving mother, a very good person. Everyone loved Megan.
Even though she was a very wealthy woman, the more you learned about her, she was quite pretentious.
A very shy, incredibly good-natured, generous woman.
At Megan's funeral, Andrew makes a very public display of emotion. The pictures are all over the newspapers and the nightly news.
Uniformed and plainclothes police made sure there was no attempt on the life of Andrew KALAJZICH, who came out of hiding for the service.
A high society person in Sydney was attacked in her bedroom and shot in her sleep, and yet the husband escapes by rolling off the bed. It was a very, very big story.
In a small town outside Sydney, an old-school criminal is watching all this news. His nickname is Black George, and he's getting very angry. It's not a good idea to make Black George angry.
I know something about this. I was, in fact, hired as the original hitman.
The Sydney beachside suburb of Manly has a local saying: 7 miles from Sydney and 1,000 miles from care. On January 27th, 1986, Megan KALAJZICH is shot in her bed. And the local mayor coins a new saying: the day that Manly lost its innocence.
He's quite manly, and here's this horrific murder scene, and have we got some maniac on the loose?
Constable Dave Christie is one of the first to arrive at a waterfront home in Manly.
Come on. Well, are you all right?
Yeah, I'm fine.
Okay, who are you?
Megan's husband, Andrew, tries to explain to him what happened.
He indicated that someone had come in and shot her.
I woke up and there was this bang, bang, 2 loud bangs.
He'd rolled out of bed.
Straight off the bed, onto the floor.
It's not long before the intuition of a police officer kicks in.
He's gone.
I think the story started to strike us as unusual later in the evening when we started to process what had actually happened, and you start to analyse it and you think, hang on, that doesn't ring true.
The female police officer on the scene observed the millionaire hotelier rubbing his eyes, crying with grief. But on closer inspection, she saw that not one tear had been shed.
His general demeanour was not what you would expect from somebody who had just laid next to his wife while she'd been slain in the bed.
Why, if they were after Andrew KALAJZICH, why on earth didn't the hitman come in through the door, shoot him first? Why would he have gone all the way around to the bed and specifically gone for Megan?
And there's another strange thing. 2 weeks before, Megan had been assaulted as she returned home one night. A masked attacker hit her on the head, then ran into the darkness without saying or taking a thing. A few days after Megan's death, as detectives ponder all of this, the phone rings. It's a call from a familiar figure in the Sydney underworld, a man named Black George.
He then calls an old detective person that he knew, and he said, I know something about this. I was, in fact, hired as the original hitman.
Black George says he stalked Megan KALAJZICH while she went shopping. In the market, he caught her eye as she was buying a head of lettuce. She gave him one of her warm smiles, and he thought, why would anyone want to kill her? She seems like such a nice lady.
He was able to ascertain very quickly that something was very smelly about this case. It was simply a domestic, and he did not do domestic hits.
Black George quits the job, but the men who hire him buy a gun off him, the gun used to shoot Megan KALAJZICH.
He rang the police because he was furious that they'd used his gun.
Yeah, I sold it to him, but I didn't shoot anyone.
He didn't want to be landed with any trouble as a co-conspirator in a murder contract.
And George names a man who might know a lot more about this murder, an unlikely suspect named Bill Vandenberg.
Bill Vandenberg had terrible luck in life. I mean, he had been in a steelworking accident and walked with a limp. He'd never really been happily married. So they go around, decide that they're going to arrest Bill Vandenberg, bash on the door at the early hours of the morning, and they get this scared rabbit sort of saying, I did the killing, it was me.
Bill explains the assault on Megan outside the family home 16 days before her murder. It was one of his 5 failed attempts to kill her.
She was fumbling around with her keys, and he actually came up behind her, and she was right next to her. She thought it was her son playing a joke.
But this is no joke. At point-blank range, Bill pulls the trigger. And the gun doesn't go off. So he hits her over the head.
The silencer from that gun fell off into the garden somewhere. And he panicked and fled.
In the elegant gardens of Sydney's harbourside homes, one might normally find roses growing, or a rare tropical orchid. In the grounds of the KALAJZICH home, The flower beds hold explosive evidence of a conspiracy to murder.
When the police got the full story, they were able to go back to the house and with the police rescue squad do a search. And by the shaking of bushes and things, the silencer, in fact, dropped on the ground.
All the evidence confirms the unlikely story that this nervous, quiet man killed Megan KALAJZICH.
Billy Vandenberg, in my view, was the unwitting murderer. He never had any police record. He lived a very clean, carefree life. But somehow he got manoeuvred into a most difficult position.
So who asked Bill to kill?
The conscience is a very powerful thing, and Billy Vandenberg's conscience by this stage was working overtime.
Eventually, Bill names a man who runs security for a high-flying Sydney hotel operator, the owner of the Manly Pacific International, Andrew KALAJZICH. The security chief is arrested, and Andrew KALAJZICH is outraged. He says he loved his wife of 34 years. He would never harm her.
The problem they continually had was how they could actually get Andrew KALAJZICH's complicity on doing the crime.
But sitting in another part of Sydney is a woman with a secret. A shoebox full of letters that will shock everyone who thought they knew Andrew KALAJZICH.
The letters are like a lovesick schoolboy.
In 1973, a young Sydney woman named Lydia was in love with a handsome, successful businessman, Andrew KALAJZICH.
Dear Lydia, I'm missing you terribly, my darling. You're too far away from me.
Lydia was a young Yugoslav girl who was employed as a waitress at the fish and chip place at K-Snapper Inn. And Andrew, I think, was attracted because she had an innocence about her. She wasn't particularly experienced with men.
But KALAJZICH is married to his wife, Megan. When he won't leave her, Lydia moves to Brazil, leaving Andrew heartbroken.
He was very besotted with her. I mean, the letters that he wrote to her that she kept in a shoebox on top of the wardrobe.
Please return to me, my love.
The letters are like a lovesick schoolboy.
Andrew begs her to return to Australia.
Awaiting your reply. Love, Andrew.
And in September 1973, she does. 6 days later, something very odd happens.
He picked up Megan and they were driving home. It was actually along a fairly winding road in Manly, and a lot of the roads, of course, being a seaside town, are along the cliff. It went very close to the edge of the road and then mounted a curb and actually went straight over that, and then at the point when the car was going over, jumped out.
The car with Megan and their son inside crashes over the cliff, but they survive, and the whole incident is written off as an accident. By 1988, Lydia has ended her affair with Andrew.
Oh, good. The premiere.
But her letters reveal another side to Andrew KALAJZICH.
I'm incomplete without you.
He has been unhappily married for over 15 years.
Clearly, Andrew was a man that wanted to live another life.
All right, Andrew, this is the gun. It's able to get.
Evidence mounts against KALAJZICH. His head of security has been arrested for hiring the hitman who shot his wife, Megan.
And I got a silencer.
And now he tells all, linking Andrew to the murder of his wife.
They actually tested the gun with the silencer in Andrew KALAJZIC's office.
Yep. Count down 3.
Yep.
2, 1.
Oh, where's that gone? That's gone straight through.
Yeah, it's all back.
very significant evidence was found. There was a dent in the skirting board on the wall.
I've seen this gunman standing over us, and I've rolled straight off the bed onto the floor.
Andrew KALAJZICH's story about the night of the murder now seems more and more unlikely.
Mr. KALAJZICH's version was that the killer had come in through those glass sliding doors into the bedroom.
But those sliding doors to the bedroom had been corroded by the sea air.
I made observations that the way that the door didn't slide along the tracks very easily.
They made a fairly loud noise because of the corrosion.
It would certainly have woken both the KALAJZICHs.
So why did Andrew roll out of bed at the last minute? One theory is he wanted the gunman to shoot him in the legs to make the attack seem more real. But poor Bill Vandenberg had barely fired a gun in his life. Andrew couldn't trust him not to miss and shoot him dead by accident.
Convicted of murder, jailed for life, the gunman, Bill Vandenberg, is racked with remorse. He had shot an innocent woman for the sum of $15,000, plus expenses. His testimony will help seal the fate of Andrew KALAJZICH.
Bill Vandenberg wanted to very much right a wrong. And he was very remorseful, and he told the truth.
Just days after testifying against KALAJZICH, Bill Vandenberg takes his own life in prison.
That's why he gave full admissions, and that's why he took his life, because he felt so dreadful for what he had done. He was extremely sorry about what he'd done to such a beautiful, innocent person.
In 1988, after a 3-month trial, a Sydney jury takes just 5 hours to find Andrew KALAJZICH guilty of murder.
KALAJZICH refuses to accept the judgment of the court. From jail, he helps fund a campaign to overturn his conviction. Such is his power in Sydney, a judicial inquiry is launched into his case. It comes back, finding him even more guilty.
Andrew KALAJZICH was given a life sentence for the murder of his wife, Megan. He is due for parole in 2011.
I really do think at the end of the day, he became drunk with power. If you want to get out of a marriage, get divorced. There's no need to take an innocent woman's life. And that's what happened here. And that's very sad.
That's the trouble with money. Have enough, and after a while, you think it can solve any problem. Alan Blackthorne didn't even leave the golf course to plan the death of his ex-wife. And Andrew KALAJZICH chose the wrong people to get a dirty job done. Too wealthy to do it themselves, murder was a task for the hired help. Till next we meet, behind mansion walls, I'm Christopher Mason.